Hello everyone and welcome. I'm excited to have you here today for our session on Excel. Today's presentation is titled Introduction to Excel, and we're starting with part 1, which covers the basics. Over the next few slides, we'll explore how to get started with Excel, understand its core functions, and build a strong foundation. So let's get started and make this learning journey both fun and informative. Let's talk about how we handle data. First, we store and organize data, which is essential for keeping everything neat and accessible. Once we have our data organized, the next step is to analyze it. That means examining the data to find patterns, trends, or insights. Finally, representing data graphically is a powerful way to understand and communicate our findings. We can use various types of charts like bar graphs, histograms, and scatter plots to make the data visually clear. In CS 101, we will mainly use Excel for all of these tasks. It's a versatile tool that helps us store, analyze, and visualize data effectively, setting a solid foundation for understanding data in more advanced contexts. Microsoft Excel is built around the concept of workbooks. Think of a workbook as your main file or container. Inside each workbook, you can have an unlimited number of worksheets. These worksheets are like individual pages or tabs within that file, where you can organize different sets of data. It's also possible to give each worksheet a specific name, which makes it easier to keep things organized and find the information you need quickly. This structure is fundamental because it helps you manage complex data in a clear and efficient way. As we continue, you'll see how understanding this setup is key to navigating Excel effectively and making the most of its powerful features. So let's take a closer look at how Excel's spreadsheets organize information. Think of a spreadsheet as a big grid made up of rows and columns. The data, whether it's text or numbers, is stored within these cells. When I point to a column, I mean the vertical set of cells that run from top to bottom. Columns are labeled with letters across the top of the sheet, starting with A, then B, C, and so on. This helps us easily identify and navigate through the data. On the other hand, rows are the horizontal lines of cells running from left to right. Each row is numbered along the side of the sheet, beginning with 1, then 2, 3, and so forth. This numbering system makes it simple to find and reference specific data points. Understanding this structure is fundamental because it sets the foundation for how we input, analyze, and manipulate data in Excel. Whether you're creating a budget, tracking sales, or managing a project, knowing how rows and columns work helps you stay organized and efficient. Remember, these basic concepts are the building blocks for everything else you'll learn about Excel. A cell is the intersection between a column and a row. So when you're working in Excel, think of each cell as the point where a specific column and a specific row meet. Each of these cells has a unique name, which is made up of the column letter followed by the row number. For example, the cell at the intersection of column A and row 1 is called A1. This nomming system is really important because it helps us identify and reference specific cells easily. Understanding how cells are named and structured is fundamental to navigating and working efficiently within Excel. It ties directly into the overall theme of mastering Excel basics, because knowing how to locate and reference cells is a key skill you'll use throughout your work. Now let's talk about some of the basic actions in Excel that we've seen in other programs too. First, there's copy and paste. This allows you to quickly duplicate rows, columns, or individual cells, making data management much more efficient. Next is insert, which is handy for adding new rows or columns wherever you need them, helping you keep your data organized. Sorting is another key feature. It lets you arrange your data alphabetically, numerically, or even chronologically, which is especially useful when you're trying to analyze or find specific information. These are fundamental skills that form the foundation of working efficiently in Excel, and mastering them will make your overall data handling much smoother, connecting seamlessly with the broader theme of becoming more proficient with this powerful tool. The insert command offers several techniques to insert rows, columns, and cells. When you're working with a table, knowing how to efficiently add new data is crucial. Inserting rows and columns allows you to expand your table as your data grows or to reorganize information for better clarity. For this content slide, I'll focus on the key points about inserting rows and columns. First, you can insert a row or column by selecting a cell in the table, then using the Insert command from the ribbon or right-click menu. This way, you can insert above or below a selected row, or to the left or right of a selected column. It's a quick way to add space where you need it. Remember, inserting rows and columns is not just about adding new data. It also helps you keep your table organized and adaptable to changes. By mastering these techniques, you'll make your tables more flexible and your data presentation clearer, which ties back to our overall goal of creating effective, professional documents. Now, let's talk about the delete command and the various techniques it offers for removing data. Specifically, we'll focus on deleting rows and columns. When working with spreadsheets, sometimes you need to remove entire rows or columns to clean up your data or reorganize your worksheet. The key point to remember is that you can delete rows or columns in different ways, depending on your needs. For example, you might select a row or column directly and delete it, or use menu options to remove multiple at once. It's important to highlight that deleting rows and columns helps streamline your data, making it more manageable and easier to analyze. This technique connects to the overall theme of data management, keeping your spreadsheet organized and relevant. So, in practice, always double-check what you're deleting to avoid losing important information. And remember that these tools give you flexibility to keep your data tidy and efficient. Now, let's talk about merging cells. Merging allows us to combine two or more adjacent cells into a single larger cell, and interestingly, this process disregards the contents of those cells. It's a handy way to create headers or organize data visually. To merge cells, you simply highlight the cells you want to merge, then select the Merge option from the Home menu. It's straightforward and saves time. Besides merging, formatting options are also key to making our data clearer and more professional. You're probably already familiar with options like bold, changing font size, or adding borders. These can be found either scattered across the Home menu or under the Format Cells menu, which you can access via right-click. And don't forget, formatting isn't just limited to individual cells. You can also format entire rows and columns, which is especially useful for emphasizing section headers or category labels. Let's see how all these formatting options come together to help us create clean, organized, and visually appealing spreadsheets. Excel also allows us to format cells by their data types, which can be incredibly useful for a variety of reasons. For example, when sorting data, manipulating values, or rounding numbers, having the correct data type can make a big difference. To do this, you go to the Numbers section in the Home menu, and you'll see a drop-down menu that defaults to General. By clicking on that, you can select the specific data type you want for your cell. This simple step ensures your data behaves exactly as you need it to, making your work more accurate and efficient. Remember, proper formatting is a key part of managing data effectively in Excel. Column width is the horizontal measurement of a column. When we talk about adjusting column width, we're essentially changing how wide or narrow a column appears in our table or spreadsheet. This is important because it helps us make our data more readable and better organized. If a column is too narrow, some data might get cut off or be hard to interpret. On the other hand, if it's too wide, it can waste space and make the table look cluttered. So, adjusting column width allows us to find that perfect balance, making sure all our information fits nicely and is easy to read. Remember, good presentation of data isn't just about accuracy, but also about clarity, and adjusting column width is a key part of that. Let's talk about row height. This is essentially the vertical measurement of a row in our spreadsheet. When we change the font size, you'll notice that the row height adjusts automatically to fit the new text size. It's a handy feature that keeps everything looking neat and readable. Now, if you're using Alt+Enter to create multiple lines within a cell, you might need to manually adjust the row height to make sure all those lines are fully visible. It's a simple step, but important for clarity. To do that, you just go to the Format menu and select Row Height. From there, you can set the exact measurement you want. Overall, adjusting row height is a key part of making sure your data is well organized and easy to read, especially as your content evolves. It ties into the broader theme of making spreadsheets both functional and visually appealing. Let's talk about entering data into a cell. There are two main ways to do this. First, you can type directly into the cell itself. To do this, simply click on the cell you want to edit, then start typing your data, whether it's numbers or text, and press enter when you're done. The second method is using the formula bar. To do this, click on the cell, then click again in the formula bar, the space right next to the FX symbol. Here, you can type your data directly into the bar, and once you're finished, press enter. Both methods are useful depending on the situation. Typing directly into the cell is quick for simple data, while using the formula bar is helpful for editing longer entries or formulas. Understanding these options gives you flexibility in how you input information, which is fundamental as we continue to learn about managing data efficiently. Excel supports a variety of data types, including text, values, dates, and even formula results. When you're working with data, it's important to understand how to enter and edit this information effectively. In Excel, you can type directly into a cell to input text or numbers, which is the foundation of building your spreadsheets. Editing cell data is just as straightforward. Simply click on the cell and make your changes. Remember, you can also edit formulas to update calculations as needed. Mastering these basic skills is essential because they allow you to organize, update, and analyze your data accurately. This forms the backbone of working efficiently in Excel, connecting to the overall goal of managing information effectively. Let's take a look at numeric formats. This slide highlights the different ways numbers can be represented in data. Understanding these formats is crucial because it affects how we interpret and analyze data correctly. For example, numbers can be presented as whole numbers, decimals, or percentages, each serving different purposes depending on the context. Using the correct numeric format ensures clarity and precision, especially when sharing insights or making decisions based on data. As we continue, keep in mind that choosing the appropriate numeric format is a key part of effective data communication within the broader theme of data literacy and accuracy. Let's continue exploring numeric formats. On this slide, we'll pick up where we left off and delve deeper into how different formats can impact the way we interpret data. It's important to understand that choosing the right numeric format ensures clarity and accuracy, especially when presenting financial or scientific information. We'll look at some common formats and see how they can be applied effectively. Remember, the goal is to make data as understandable as possible for your audience, so selecting the appropriate format is key. As we progress, keep in mind how consistent formatting enhances professionalism and reduces confusion in your reports. Now, let's continue exploring numeric formats. On this slide, we'll delve deeper into some additional ways numbers can be formatted for clarity and precision. As we've seen earlier, choosing the right format is essential for effective communication, especially when dealing with large or small values. One key point to remember is that the right format can significantly impact how easily your audience understands your data. For example, scientific notation is incredibly useful when working with very large or very small numbers, as it simplifies complexity and makes comparisons easier. Similarly, currency formatting helps clearly convey monetary values, ensuring there's no confusion about units. It's also important to be consistent with your formatting throughout your report or presentation, so your audience can follow along seamlessly. Remember, the goal is to make your data as accessible as possible, and choosing the appropriate numeric format is a vital step towards that. So, as we move forward, keep in mind how these formats can enhance the clarity of your data storytelling. Now, let's talk about how easily you can remove data from your spreadsheet. Whether you want to delete content from a single cell, an entire column, or a whole row, there are straightforward methods to do this. For example, if you want to delete a whole column or row, you can simply click on the header of the column or row you wish to remove, and then click on the Delete button located in the Cells group on the Home tab. Another quick way, especially when working with entire rows or columns, is to click a cell within that row or column first. Then, follow the same process, click on the header and delete. You also have the option to use the right-click menu, which provides delete options as well. It's very handy if you prefer right-clicking over using the ribbon. And if you're looking to delete data from specific cells or a group of cells rather than entire rows or columns, that's simple too. Just highlight the cells you want to clear and then press the delete key on your keyboard. These methods make data removal quick and efficient, which helps you keep your data clean and organized as you work through your spreadsheets. Let's talk about selecting a cell range. A range is basically a rectangular group of cells, which makes it easier to work with multiple cells at once. When you're selecting a range, you're choosing all the cells within that rectangle. Now, sometimes you might need to select multiple ranges that aren't next to each other. That's called a non-adjacent range. It contains a group of ranges that are separated by other cells or ranges, but you can select them all together by holding down a key like Control or Command while clicking. Understanding how to select both adjacent and non-adjacent ranges is key to efficiently managing your data and performing bulk actions. This concept ties into the overall theme of working smarter with your spreadsheets, making data handling more efficient and precise. Autofill allows us to quickly copy the contents of a cell or a range of cells by simply dragging the fill handle over adjacent cells. It's a really handy feature that saves us time and effort. To use autofill, the first step is to click on the cell that contains the data you want to copy. This makes it the active cell. Next, you'll want to position your mouse pointer over the bottom right corner of that cell. When you do this correctly, the cursor will change to a small black plus sign, which we call the fill pointer. Finally, click and drag that fill handle across the cells where you want the content to be copied. This process is very intuitive and helps us efficiently populate a series of cells with similar or sequential data, which ties into our overall theme of working smarter with Excel. Let's talk about formulas first. Formulas are basically equations that perform calculations within your spreadsheet. They always start with an equals sign, which is really important. When you type an equals sign into a cell, you're telling Excel, calculate this. It's like giving Excel a command to do some math for you, whether it's adding, subtracting, or more complex operations. Now, moving on to functions. Think of functions as built-in formulas that Excel provides for you. They're like shortcuts that take data you select or enter, perform specific calculations on that data, and then give you the result. Functions make complex calculations much easier and more efficient, especially when you're working with large data sets. Both formulas and functions are essential tools in Excel because they help automate calculations and make your data analysis much more powerful. Remember, formulas are your custom equations, and functions are predefined tools that simplify those calculations. Understanding how to use both effectively is key to leveraging the full potential of Excel in your work. Let's take a moment to look at some key mathematical symbols that are foundational in this field. These symbols help us communicate complex ideas clearly and efficiently. For example, you'll see symbols like the plus sign, which indicates addition, or the equals sign, showing equivalence between expressions. Understanding these symbols is crucial because they form the language through which we describe mathematical relationships. As we progress, keep in mind how these symbols connect to the concepts we've discussed earlier, such as variables, functions, and models. They serve as tools that allow us to express ideas precisely and concisely, which is essential for both analysis and communication in this field. So, mastering these symbols will enhance your ability to interpret and construct mathematical statements effectively. Now, let's talk about the order of precedence, which is all about controlling the sequence in which math operators are computed. This is crucial because, as you know, the same expression can give different results depending on the order in which calculations are performed. The key point here is that certain operations take precedence over others. First, we have parentheses. Anything inside parentheses gets calculated first, which allows us to specify the exact order we want. Next comes exponentiation, which involves powers and roots. After that, we handle multiplication and division, which are on the same level of priority. Finally, addition and subtraction are performed last. Understanding this hierarchy helps us evaluate complex expressions correctly and consistently. Remember, the order of precedence is like a set of rules that guides us step by step through the calculation process, making sure everyone gets the same answer. This concept ties into the overall theme of mastering mathematical operations efficiently and accurately. When working with formulas in Excel, it's always best to use cell addresses rather than typing in actual data. For example, if cell A1 contains the value 5, and you want to add the value from cell B1, you should write the formula as equals A1 plus B1. This way, if the value in A1 changes later, your formula will automatically update to reflect that change. On the other hand, if you use equals 5 plus B1, you're fixing the number 5 in the formula. So, if A1's value changes, your formula won't automatically adjust. This is where cell references in formulas really shine. They make your spreadsheets dynamic and adaptable. When data updates, Excel recalculates based on those cell references, keeping your results accurate without rewriting formulas. So, always prefer cell addresses in formulas, because it keeps your data flexible and your calculations reliable, especially as your data evolves. This principle ties back to our goal of building efficient, responsive spreadsheets. All functions in Excel follow a common format, which is the equals sign, then the function name, followed by the input in parentheses. The input for a function can be either a set of numbers, like in this example, equals average 2, 3, 4, 5. When you see this, it tells Excel to calculate the average of those specific numbers. Alternatively, the input can be references to cells. For example, equals average, B1, B18, or equals average, B1, B2, B3, B4, B5, B6, B7, B8. These tell Excel to calculate the average of the data in the range from B1 to B8, or in specific cells listed out. You can type these cell references manually, or you can simply click and drag with your mouse to select the cells. This makes it quick and easy to create dynamic formulas that update automatically as your data changes. So the key takeaway here is that functions always follow this format, and the input can either be specific numbers or cell references, both of which tell Excel what data to use for the calculation. This consistency helps keep formulas clear and manageable as you work with larger datasets. Now, let's look at some functions you might need to learn for this class. First, we have the average function, which calculates the mean of a range of cells. This is useful when you want to find the central value of your data set. Next is the median function, which finds the middle value when your data is ordered from smallest to largest. It's especially helpful when your data has outliers that can skew the average. Then there's the mode function, which identifies the most frequently occurring value in your data set. This can give you insight into the most common result or value. Moving on, we have the VARP function, which calculates the variance. Variance tells you how spread out your data points are around the mean. High variance means the data points are more spread out, while low variance indicates they are closer together. Finally, STDEVP calculates the standard deviation, which is the square root of the variance. It provides a measure of overall data dispersion, making it easier to interpret than variance alone. You can directly enter these functions into cells or the formula bar, but there's also a handy function wizard in the toolbar that makes selecting and inserting these functions straightforward. These tools are essential for conducting descriptive statistics, helping you analyze and understand your data more effectively. Thanks so much for your time and attention today. I really appreciate you being here and engaging with the material. I hope you found the insights and strategies shared useful and inspiring. Remember the key points we discussed. The importance of innovation, teamwork, and continuous learning are all integral to achieving success in this field. I encourage you to take these ideas forward, apply them in your own work, and keep pushing boundaries. Together, we can make a real difference. Thanks again for being part of this journey.